Cost of Victory, Book 1 of the Unseen Scar series by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 8. It took some finagling to get Oya to leave him alone. It was nice she wanted to work around him, but he still had work to do. When she gave up, she vanished into thin air, seemingly. Part of Ferdinand had a sneaky suspicion she hadn't actually left. Before he could consider it, he noticed his mounted screen flashing. A call request was missed 2 minutes ago. Knowing the person who sent it, though... 30 seconds after returning the request, an older gentleman appeared on the screen. A thin line of white hair circled his head like a cotinos. Only the 90-plus-year-old man was decades too old to be winning any sports trials. Still, his face was kind. Through his eyes shone the silly disposition the man enjoyed. This worked well for Ferdinand. There weren't many who'd help someone as young as him with what he did. But the older gentleman was eccentric enough to not care about his age, and serious when absolutely necessary. How are you going to destroy him? Grandpa Huey. Ferdinand bowed to the man who wasn't his grandfather, but Huey insisted anyone younger than 50 call him this. Cut it out. One of these days we'll meet face to face and I'll smack you straight if you do that. Grandpa Huey's voice sounded grumpy, but a big smile curled his lips and his eyes danced. I'm sorry, sir, but I was raised right. A murderer? Raised right? If you were raised right, you'd listen to your elder and do what I tell you to. Yes, sir. Ferdinand smiled softly. Seemed they had the same little discussion every time they spoke. Straightening to face the man, Ferdinand found himself taken in by Huey's ocean blue eyes. They were impossibly deep and rich, inescapably so. Grandpa Huey was one of the few people Ferdinand had met who also had blue eyes. This trait became increasingly rarer as the generations passed. Unlike his nearly colorless crystal blue, the older man's ocean eyes glowed, framed by dark skin. That grin widened all the more. Glad I caught you in such a good mood. You do get perverse pleasure from hurting people. Cheeks reddening, Ferdinand cleared his voice. How may I be of service, sir? You can drop the sir nonsense, son. He raised a scolding eyebrow, but didn't have the facial expression to pull it off. Like I said, sir. A smirk fought to take over Ferdinand's lips. Well then, sir. Huey folded his arms as if in triumph. You got a big request this time. Yes, sir. What is it? Picking up a screen, Ferdinand ready to jot down everything. Those silly little bars of yours you say replace food. Huge order came in for them. I'm sending the types and quantities requested. Thank you, sir. Is this for Azute? You don't know. The man's surprised face spoke volumes to how much he wasn't kidding. Don't know what? You don't know anything. Boy, what's the point of having access to all the world if you don't check on home now and again? Something happened in my dukedom? The Duchess hasn't said anything. Oh, yeah. Grandpa Huey wiggled into a more comfortable position, as if preparing for story time. Your country's main crop farms failed again. Most of the livestock's been slaughtered, so that's pretty much decimated. Again? That's 3 seasons in a row. Do they know why? Ferdinand chewed on his lip. Not another disaster. Not more blood on my hands. Cursing the land from here. Impressive. No matter how he tried, Ferdinand couldn't expand his lungs. All official reports are being kept out of the public eye. But you know. Calm down. Breathe in slowly. Of course I know, son. Huey returned the look. Seems the fields lost all their nutrients. I'm not sure how exactly, mind you, but I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't someone sowing salt. Sabotage? Do you really think anyone would do that? It wouldn't hurt the monarchs, just the people. Oh, a few monarchs will get it, once the people get hungry enough. Where am I sending the bars? Your dukedom. That's what's in the request. But you said the main farms are down. The big cities should be needing them, not my dukedom. Your mother's expanded the farming. Half the lands in your dukedom were turned over to fields and pastures. Duchess Samolt's been sending all the crops they produce to the main capital for distribution. Ferdinand's teeth clenched shut. I should have known. You don't seem confused, son. She's sending all the food that way, after quadrupling the food production. Else why would they be needing your bars? I'm not confused. I know what she's doing. Ferdinand looked down, not wanting to give anything away. Care to enlighten an old man? The Duchess wasn't trying to win support with her actions. No, her intentions fell somewhere else entirely. Ferdinand understood. If asked, he'd support this, but he couldn't explain why. No one would understand. She's doing what's best for the entire country. If a few people have to tighten their belts so others don't starve, then that's the way it has to be. Sacrifice everyone. Tighten their belts. Did you hear me when I said all the food? For 3 seasons? Yes, sir. Son, I don't know what's giving me more of a headache, keeping your funds under the radar or trying to understand your family. I'm sorry, Grandpa Huey. Ah, you used my name, now that you're trying to appease me. I'm sorry, sir. Who made the request? Anonymous. Anonymous? Who'd help my dukedom? Someone who doesn't want to become your victim. Son, why do you keep doing that? Doing what? There a bug flying around your head I can't see? Grating laughter filled Ferdinand's skull. Son? What? It took yelling to realize he was covering his ears. I'm sorry. It wasn't often Grandpa Huey was serious, but his worry banished all joviality. Ferdinand, are you okay? I'm sorry. What have I been doing? Sifting through his well-crafted masks, Ferdinand put on his most practiced smile. I'm sorry for troubling you. Thank you for sending along that request. There were objections as Ferdinand tried ending the conversation, but eventually Grandpa Huey gave up. Giving a respectful goodbye, the skeleton started up Oya's music. It played continuously as he sent out distribution requests and called in favors to meet the amount needed. While awaiting responses, Ferdinand took a moment to check on his bots. They were replicating nicely. Next, he set to work ordering more supplies and mixing up a batch of his bars. A twinge of guilt hit him as he realized there was something more important. Hesitantly, he reached for a screen and placed a call. The reply came hours later, when he was elbow-deep in a tar-like batter. Taking a moment to scrape his hands clean, Ferdinand used an elbow to tap the mounted screen. My apologies, Lord Ferdinand. I just received your call. Healer Bayer gave his student his full attention, unaccustomed to being contacted by the skeleton. There are a number of people here suffering from the effects of the virus, aren't there? This confirmation was hardly necessary. He saw it all across the islands. There was no doubt the healers were exhausted. Scream shot through the door, startling the floating Theon and causing him to drop the screen he'd been working on. It took a minute to find the transparent rectangle in the soft carpet. Nightmares again? For over a week, Saphir screamed himself awake every time he slept. It wore on both of them and severely affected the prince's sleep. Half the time his sweet mate was up and moving, it didn't look like the prince was there. Neither did Saphir always respond when he spoke. Theon was halfway to Saphir's room when the prince's door slammed open. Onyx eyes glared past him as if he wasn't there. I'll kill you! What did you do to me? Soaring to the ceiling, Theon hurried out of the prince's way. He wasn't sure who Saphir was yelling at, but the boy was exhausted. I'll give him one more day, if he hasn't slept by then. Flying to the door, he slipped out into the hall as Saphir fell to his knees. Golden hands clawed at thick black hair. By morning, if he doesn't sleep tonight. Floating down the stairwell, the Energist ran into someone unexpected. Rumors spoke of the skeleton's return, but he hadn't seen Ferdinand until now. Don't go up there. Bowing his head respectfully, Ferdinand stepped aside for his sweet mate to float past. What do you mean? Your cousin's in a state I've never seen before. Be smart. Find somewhere else to be. I know I am. Why tell me? Being punished for the selfish, callous things you do is fine, but no one should die because he's having trouble. Hiding his face, Ferdinand bowed properly to the older boy. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for volunteering, Gerard. Healer Bear smiled as his student winced. After the miracle Ferdinand pulled off in South Chuzo, there was no question about the skeleton's abilities. However, he couldn't have people take untested medicine without their consent. I'm up for anything right now. This break will be a busy one. If this will make me better faster, I'm all for it. Bayer nodded. Gerard was the perfect choice. The boy was a top-class healer who hadn't been healing himself, focusing on the younger children instead. This seemed foolish at first, but it worked out now. If anything went wrong with the medicine, Gerard could purge it from his body. Regardless, the boy could take note on how well it worked and possible things to look out for. This would be helpful here on the islands, but for those beyond an alumni healer's reach, it was invaluable. Before giving the injection, Healer Bear emphasized his worries. You understand, it hasn't been tried. We don't know the side effects, or if there'll be any adverse reactions. I understand. A pained grin twisted Gerard's face. According to legend, if I can't survive something as simple as a new medicine, I'm definitely not meant to be Cal. Bayer gave a wince of a smile. There's something else you need to know. Yes, sir? It's not a traditional medicine. Sir? An eyebrow rose on Gerard's face, demanding an explanation. Sighing, Bayer leaned forward. It wasn't made by healers. It's not even organic. This grabbed the older boy's attention. Please continue. Not taking Theon's advice, Ferdinand headed up. Whatever happened to his cousin, fixing it was his responsibility first and foremost. Upon entering the suite, he was greeted by an unusual sight. Zephyr sat in the common room, facing the window, and didn't seem to notice him enter. Dark energy radiated from his prince. What's going on? Ferdinand approached, studying Zephyr's reflection in the large, scenic windows. My prince? No response came. Bloodshot onyx eyes turned to the window as Zephyr mumbled something. Suddenly those eyes focused, opening wide in rage as recognition hit. You! He screamed. What did you do to him this time? Golden hand shot forward, one slicing under the other. It was a gesture Ferdinand knew too well. And he deserved it. He deserved death at his cousin's hands. Yes, he'd killed millions. But his prince suffered daily since Ferdinand was born, simply because he was there. No matter how he tried, the skeleton always ended up hurting his cousin. Every day, because he existed. If anyone had a right to kill him, it was his prince. The look Ferdinand saw as Zephyr faced him was one he knew all too well. Fear and frustration boiled into rage, a rage barely contained in that small golden frame. His cousin couldn't see anything but him right now. That face. It was the look his prince got when no longer in control. Come morning, no memories of this night would exist for his cousin. None were being encoded now. It had been a while since his prince completely lost his mind. It didn't happen often anymore. But whatever caused it this time, ultimately, was Ferdinand's fault. It always was. But something was different. Instead of a predator, his prince looked like a wounded animal. What have I done to you? You destroyed him. Zephyr leapt, rushing at him, flailing wildly. A hard blow landed, making everything dark. Oya stood above the two unconscious boys sprawled out on the floor, a handful of glowing orbs dancing in her peripheral. How can you be so insightful, yet blind to this? Picking up Ferdinand's body, she took him to bed. He was tiny. Did John realize how precariously balanced he was? Delicate hands hovered over his chest. She soaked up what little damage was done. Watching was fine, giving her friend a chance to do the right thing. But once she saw how barren the mutt's eyes were, waiting for him to act was no longer an option. Absolutely certain that dog would have killed her friend, she had to step in. Returning to the common room, Oya squatted down next to the filthy beast. Why does he prostrate himself before you when he knows you'll rip his throat out?